Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Whether you're joining us live or on demand, we want to welcome you back to our Mobile App Academy, where we show you how to build and configure mobile apps live here on the Now platform. My name, as always, is Charlie Steiner, a product marketing manager here on the mobile team at ServiceNow. And today we'll be walking you through getting started with HR for Now Mobile, as well as lightly touching on the new safe workplace experience on Now Mobile as well. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is a live building series that focuses on managing and building out mobile apps in real time. We'll have product experts on hand to answer your questions, provide guidance, give best practices, and go through any of your questions posted in the Q&A window. We host these sessions every 2 weeks here in Zoom at 10 a.m. Pacific, and the recordings are posted on YouTube shortly after. That link to the YouTube playlist will be in the chat, so be sure to look for that. What's really important to us here at Mobile App Academy is that we get insight from all of you. So whether it's here in the chat, on our mobile community, on our ideas page, we base our session topics around what we hear from you, what you want to learn, and what you're giving us feedback on. So as I mentioned, the links to all those places, websites, and assets will be posted in the chat. So be sure to check them out. And if you have any questions on those, do let us know. And today, I think we're in a great form, a great run of special guests, and Kevin is a great continuation of that. We have Kevin, who is a senior principal product manager representing the HR BU. So let me go ahead and pass it over. He can introduce himself and fill us in on today's topic.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared. We'll jump right in. So thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be part of this Mobile App Academy series. As Charlie said, my name is Kevin Machos. I am an outbound product manager within the employee workflows business unit here at ServiceNow. So focusing on the HR applications as well as the safe workplace and workplace service delivery products. So for today's session, a little bit different, I think, than what you might typically be used to for these sessions. The goal for today is really to talk about how can you deploy the Now mobile app to support HR service delivery, and how can you do that very quickly with some basic configurations and not a lot of what I would consider technical deep knowledge in the platform. And the reason why we think this is important is because a lot of the HR customers that we are talking to, they don't always have the technical team to support them, right? A lot of times they're borrowing resources from IT and they have to get on their calendars to get work done, and they don't like to wait. So they want to be able to get new innovative solutions out there on their own. And I think that's the point of this this session today is that those HR departments can do this on their own if they don't have those technical resources at their disposal. So before we get into the actual configuration and walking through it, because that's really what I want to focus on, there are just some conceptual things that you want to consider or think about before you start deploying Now Mobile for HR. And first and foremost, the thing you need to think about is this an HR only deployment of Now Mobile, or does it include IT as well, right? So we have customers that just use our HR service delivery product. We also have customers that use IT and HR together. And even in those cases, some of those customers have a single portal, for example, that employees can go to for service for both of those areas. But in some cases, they're separate. They're separate portals. So in the case where it's one portal, you're probably in a better situation to go live with Now Mobile, because chances are those two teams are already talking to each other if they're sharing a site. If you have separate sites, what I wanted to point out is that there needs to be a little bit more coordination or collaboration between the groups before you deploy anything new in Now Mobile, because you want to make sure it's a consistent experience, right? You want to make sure that you're referring to things in a consistent way. So you do want to make sure that you have both groups at the table when you're deploying this. The other thing to think about is, from an HR perspective, is what are you trying to support? What do you want to expose to your employees from a capabilities perspective? And I think what ends up happening a lot of times is organizations get overwhelmed with what to present or put out there, and that tends to slow them down. So what I'm here to say is start with the basics, and then you can iterate this over time and expose new capabilities. So think about, what do your employees need most? Well, they probably just need help, right? They want to get to knowledge, or they want to get to the services that they need, or they want to quickly get things done like approvals. So what are those main use cases that you need to support? And out of the box, we support most of those things that you're going to need. And this is definitely not one of those implementations that it's a one and done. You can definitely deploy some capabilities and then get on a regular release schedule where you're always exposing new things as needed and when the time's right, or once you get feedback from your employees. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because there's lots of other content out there on this topic, but it does come up when we talk to HR groups, right? Is what are my options for branding the app? How do I make it feel like part of our organization and not like a ServiceNow app? And there's really two options. There's mobile publishing. This is where you can make it completely your own, replace the icon, replace the splash screen, put in your own colors. This does come at a cost. You have to get specific licensing for this. And there's some deployment considerations to keep in mind. There's also mobile themes, which you can do with the app out of the box, which allows you to change the colors to better match your corporate color scheme, or match a portal that you probably have already designed. And later on, I'll show you some examples, some other ways that you can get some branding without using the mobile publishing solution. Okay. So what am I going to walk through today, right? So a lot of you are familiar with Now Mobile already. What I want to do is walk through what are the things that you need to look at and potentially think about reconfiguring when you're deploying HR. And for this example, my goal is to walk through sort of the out of the box experience. What does this thing look like if you just log into it against your instance and try to use it? And it's pretty IT centric in that model. So the example I'm going to take is for today is sort of walking through how do we convert that to an HR only experience, right? So I'm going to be swapping out the IT content for the HR content. So before we get into that, just want to give you a little bit of a plan of attack of what we're going to cover. The first area we're going to talk about is that nav bar, right? Talk about which tabs do you need to use, what order do they show up in, and what how should those things be labeled, right? So we're going to focus on that first. Then we're going to look at the applet launcher. When I say applet launcher, I'm just referring to a screen within the app, right? So this is in this example, this is the services applet launcher, and we're going to go through and reconfigure a couple of those to be more HR centric. And we're going to do that by playing with the sections that show up within the launcher, right? So like this recent services or popular services is a section, and we're going to show you how there's some pre-delivered ones that you can use to really expose a lot of the HR capabilities that we have. The other thing I wanted to point out is quick actions, right? Typically shows up if you're on an iOS device, it shows up here in the upper right-hand corner. And you can configure what's behind that as well, right? Does it open up chat? Does it open up virtual agent? Does it do something else? And that's another area you're going to want to look at when you're thinking about what you're going to expose for HR. We're also going to talk about how you map the appropriate content, right? So this is sort of the meat of the session is how do you make sure that your HR catalogs and your knowledge bases, and when you're searching, that you're searching against HR content that you have in your instance. Talk about content from a content delivery perspective. One of the key pieces of capability with that you get with Employee Service Center is the ability to deliver content, and that can be done through campaigns. And that content can be presented within Now Mobile. So we'll show you how to expose that within the app. And then finally, if you're using onboarding, I'll show you how you can add a pre-delivered new hire onboarding section to Now Mobile for your managers. So if you have managers that have regularly have new hires, or maybe have multiple new hires coming online at any given time, there's a new hire onboarding section that you can add to Now Mobile to better support those managers, right? So that gives you a little bit of an idea of where we're going to walk through. And again, the sort of approach I'm going to take is the out-of-the-box app and making it an HR-centric experience. Okay. All right. So first things first, let's pull up the app and my instance. All right. So one of the things I love about the Now Mobile app is the ability to make these changes on the fly and be able to see them right away. So I'm going to use the split screen sort of approach here. We'll see how that works. On the left is my mobile device with the Now app up. And over on the right is the backend instance where I'm going to be doing the configurations. So the first thing I want to just talk about is this nav bar down at the bottom, right? So you'll see I've got services, again, very IT centric. I have information, which is obviously knowledge. Now, as I mentioned, right, you probably have an HR service portal or maybe a combined portal. And as an example of that, this is just a demo one here. But in this demo example, one thing I wanted to point out is you'll notice in this example, they've branded it where you have knowledge and catalog as the navigation labels. But here in the app, it says services and information. So one thing that you always want to do is make sure that you're consistent in your labeling schemes so that the experience is the same for the employee, right? You don't want to confuse them by using different terms in different places. That also goes back to the point I made earlier about if IT and HR are calling these things different things on their own sites, that's where you might want to have a little collaboration to come up with the best wording for those, right? So we're going to start off with the nav bar, and I'm just using favorites for the sake of making the demo easy here. So in the system mobile section of the navigation, there is a navigation bar item that we can go into, and you'll see I have my Now Mobile nav bar here, and that's what we're going to work on. So here within the navigation bar, you can see the tabs, right? I've got services, information, for me, notifications and settings. That matches exactly here what we have. So as an example, the first thing I mentioned is you want to make sure these labels are consistent, right? So if we want to make it the same as that portal I showed you, then I might want to make services, I might want to call that my catalog instead, right? So all I'm doing here is going in and changing the label on this tab. And then I'm going to want to go in and change information to knowledge because that's what it was on my portal. Now we can have all these labels look the same. And then the other thing that I would do is I'm not necessarily sure I like having the catalog tab be first, right? So I might want to move for me to be the first tab because that makes a little bit more sense. And that is just going over and changing the order. So you can see over here, the 10, 20, 30, 40, that is just indicating the order that the tabs are presented in. So I can just go in and change for me from 30 to say 5, because that's a lower number than 10, and that will reorder it for us, right? So now if we do a quick refresh in the app over here, you'll notice that now my nav bar has been updated. I've got for me, I have my catalog, knowledge, and notifications, and it's exactly the way I want it. All right. Now, not to get off track, but one of the things that Charlie mentioned, and one of the things that ServiceNow has delivered on this year is we have a new set of apps called Safe Workplace, the Safe Workplace Suite, which is really a bunch of applications that are geared towards companies bringing their employees back to work safely, right? So being able to survey your employees to see if they're ready to come back to the office. If they are, allowing them to make reservations for seats and making sure that they're doing their health screening before they come into the office. And obviously, when you start talking about those sorts of activities, being able to do that from a mobile device is key, because if somebody's going to do a health verification at home before they come into the office, it probably makes sense for them to do that on their phone. And with the Safe Workplace apps, we deliver the mobile experience out of the box. So if you're using Safe Workplace as an example, and you want to roll out Now Mobile, you can just add it as a tab here. So I can go in and say, I want to add a new tab, and the tab that navigation tab that we deliver is called health, right? And let's say I want to make that the second tab in this particular case. So we'll just actually, I'm going to make it the fourth one. So we'll put this back at 30. So now, because we deliver this, all I had to do is add the tab and reference health. And now that new tab shows up in the app. And if I'm using Safe Workplace, all of the things that we deliver are available, right? Now, obviously, within here, if you're not using one of the many Safe Workplace apps, for example, requesting PPE, if you're not using that, then you can configure this to remove that that icon from this particular screen. But I just wanted to call this out from the perspective of this is something that we deliver out of the box and very easy to add to Now Mobile. And in a lot of cases, we have customers that are deploying Now Mobile simply for this use case because they have the need, given the current environment that we're in. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, which is updating that nav bar, right? So now it's the way we want it. So now let's talk about catalogs and making sure that the app is looking at the right catalogs, right? So here, as I mentioned, this is the out-of-the-box experience. So it's looking at my IT catalog. So again, within System Mobile, there's a catalogs item, and this is where you configure which catalogs the app is looking at, right? So you can see here that the IT service catalog is set to true, it's active, and my HR catalog is false, which means it's not being looked at by Now Mobile. If you have other catalogs, you can add them as new here, right? So you can just search your existing catalogs and pick any of them that you'd want to add, and for those things that you want to make available through the app. All right. So I've already added my HR one, but what I need to do is just change it so that it's active. So we're just going to switch, make it active, and save that. And we will inactivate the IT one because, again, in this example, we're making this an HR experience because my IT group is not ready to use Now Mobile yet. All right. So now when I refresh my app, the services will change within the catalog, right? So now I have recent services, popular services, and you can start to see that when I scroll down to browse, it's showing me my HR catalog items instead of the IT ones, right? So one thing you'll notice here is that by default, your categories probably don't have icons associated to them. And that's why I'm getting these missing image icons over here on the left-hand side of the screen. And that's a pretty common thing that customers deploying Now Mobile for HR run into because they don't have these configured as part of their normal deployment. So one of the things that you'll want to do is go into your catalog and put in an icon for these service categories, right? So here, if I go in and edit my benefits category, and I call this out because there's multiple images here. There's a header icon and there's an icon. What you wanted in a desktop image, what you want to do is add an icon in here if you want it to show up in the app. So I have one here that I have set up for benefits. So we'll get that added. Now, obviously, you'd want to do this for all of your categories. I'm just going to do it for this one right now. And obviously, that's one thing that might take a little bit more time if you have corporate standards for images and those sorts of things, unless you have a corporate library ready to go. Oops, I got to update that. And then that'll show up. So now I have my benefits icon showing up, right? And similarly, when I drill into any one of these categories, You'll notice too that now that I'm looking at my services, there are images here as well. So you'll want to make sure that your record producers have images on them. Now, these are a little bit different. It's not the icon that you want to update. So let me just show you this real quick so that when you go to try to do this, you know what you're looking at. Just pick any one of them here. It is the picture that you want to replace on this one, not the icon. So in this particular case, it's the picture that you'll replace. And of course, I picked one that didn't have it, but not the icon. So for your categories, it's the icon. For your record producers, it's pictures. And that's what controls what shows up here in the app. Okay. All right. So we now have our catalog connected the right way. The next thing that we'd want to do is look at knowledge, right? And this is exactly the same thing. Under System Mobile, there are knowledge bases, and the same process here. I can add a new knowledge base if you have multiple that you want to reference, and then you can indicate which ones are active to display the appropriate ones. So again, here I'm going to go in and activate the HR one. And we'll deactivate IT. Right, so now my app from a knowledge perspective is looking at my HR knowledge base and not my IT one. And similarly, if I go back and refresh my knowledge tab, it will catch up and now it's just browsing my HR content from a knowledge perspective, right? So catalog is set up, knowledge bases are set up. The other thing that I want to point out is you want to configure what is being searched. And again, this is just like catalogs and knowledge, where you go into your search configuration and you can indicate what are the search sources that the app is going to look at, right? So here I have knowledge articles, I have services, and I have people, right? So this is just pointing to your knowledge bases and your catalogs essentially. The one that you might want to consider looking at is people. You might want to remove this one. That would be, in the use case there would be, let's say you have your employee directory already established outside of ServiceNow. Maybe your HR platform is where your employees go for that, or you have something else on your portal for using as a directory, and you don't want people to use ServiceNow for that. You could remove people as a search source, so that when I'm searching, I'm not going to get any employees back in that search, right? So that's why I call out. This is just one of those things you want to double check to make sure that it's only looking at the sources that you want available. Okay. All right. So now the app is pointing to all the right things. Now let's make sure that it looks the way that we want, right? So if we look at the app now and we start off on the services tab, which I've relabeled to be catalog, if this is an HR only experience, you'll notice that at the top I have My Locker and select a tech lounge, right? So if I'm not using those services or if I'm not managing my assets or I don't have a tech lounge set up, I'm going to want to remove those things, right? So we do that under System Mobile Applet Launchers. And we go into Services. And we go into the body. And that's where you'll see the order of the content, right? So I have my stuff, which is My Locker, Tech Lounge Visits is Tech Lounge, and then you have recent services and popular services, right? So what I want to do is edit this so that I can remove the things that I don't want to use. So I don't want to use my stuff. So we're going to remove that and save. And then I want to remove the Tech Lounge visits, but that is under the walk-up experience scope. So I have to go change that real quick. And I'm going to remove Tech Lounge. Bear with me while we switch scopes. And hold on. Walk up, remove that. All right. Let me refresh this, see if it's catching up for us. There we go. So now my catalog tab is not showing those IT items that I don't need to expose. While we're on this tab, though, I do want to call out the quick action, right? So I mentioned that before up here in the upper right-hand corner. This is another item you're going to want to look at, right? So the way that the quick action is configured by Applet Launcher. So if you look at this menu and you look at the quick actions over here for this tab, you'll see they align, right? So similarly, just as I remove those sections, you'd want to remove those quick actions for visit a tech lounge or leave the queue, since those are related to the tech lounge solution. And you might want to remove report an issue because that's an IT item as well. So each one of these Applet launchers, you're going to want to double check the quick actions and just expose the ones that make sense for your deployment. Okay. All right. So catalog tab is good to go. Now what I want to do is look at the For Me tab, right? And what can we do to improve this experience, since it's the first thing people are going to see when they log into the app. So let's go back to our Applet launchers. And we're going to go into the For Me applet. And let's switch scopes again. All right. So again, here you'll see I have my body sections, which are my to-dos and my requests. And then the quick actions here are just chat. So same thing here. This is where you could go and add any other quick actions that you want. The first thing I want to do, though, is I want to show you how you can change the body to include a section that shows content. And as I mentioned, the ability to create content or expose content is part of Employee Service Center, but that means you can also do it as part of the mobile app as well. So, pick the wrong scope. Screens and Applet Launcher. There we go. So what I want to do is come down and edit these to add in some sections. And okay, help me out, guys. Why is the add a row not showing up? I thought I was in the right scope here.
You're inside of the scope. Try clicking refresh real fast. And then that button should show up. Click cancel on the scope at the top.
Ah, got it.
And then hopefully that row should show up.
There we go. Now we're talking. Okay. So I want to add a row first for content. And this is essentially controlling where the content would display. So I'm going to put this section as 5 because I want it to show up first at the top of the screen. And again, this is a section that we deliver out of the box. So I just have to add the mobile content section, and this will now basically allocate that real estate in the app. So when I refresh now, you'll notice at the top, I now have content being presented. Now, I'm not going to get into how the content works today because that's probably a session in and of itself. We have a lot of great content out on the community site that talks about how to use content, create campaigns to push things out. You can see if there are multiple pieces of content that apply or should be visible. It's a carousel sort of model here at the top where you can swipe through them. This is also an example of how you can do some level of branding within the app. So even if you just wanted to put a corporate logo or some sort of banner image in here with a title that was more in line with your corporate branding, this is one way that you can do it through these mobile content sections. And as a side note, when you create content, you can define audiences for who it's presented to. So you can have content that is designed for specific users, and only that will show up based on the person that's logged in, right? So being able to add content here really can improve the experience. And then of course, you can also make this content actionable or clickable, right? So one of them goes to, in this case, it goes to LinkedIn for some training content. The COVID-19 resources one in this particular example goes to some content within a portal page, right? So the content can be, or excuse me, this one's a knowledge article. So you can have that content be actionable in the sense that you can have it take the user someplace else. Okay. So now our initial page is starting to look a little bit better. We've got some content. I can see my to-dos and my requests, right? So the other thing that's sort of HR specific is if you're using ServiceNow for onboarding, right? As a manager, you're going to want to complete onboarding related activities from the mobile app. And with the Paris release, we delivered an out-of-the-box section that you can add to better support that. So as an example, let's add that in, right? So now I want to add another row to my applet launcher. And let's say we'll make this the second one. So I'm just going to put this at order 8. And then I'm going to select that section, which is called track new hires. Again, we deliver that. So what this now does is it looks and it says, hey, if this person is a manager and they happen to have any open onboarding case for a new hire, then it will display this section. If they don't, then it won't display. So it'll be dynamic. But what's nice about this particular section is it gives the manager quick access to how their new hires doing and what do they need to do and how are they progressing through their activities. So you'll see here I have Maria, who's my manager in this case, has a new hire starting on November 30th, and she can just tap into that employee's onboarding activities and see what are the tasks that they need to complete. So Maria, as a manager, has 2 things that she needs to complete, but then she can also see the overall timeline of what tasks are going to be coming at different stages of the onboarding process. So again, this is an out-of-the-box solution that we deliver. You can easily add it to any applet launcher, and again, we'll only display if it needs to based on the manager. So now that I've added content and I've added this new hire section, the screen is starting to get a little too much scrolling for my liking, right? So one other thing that you can easily do with these sections is reconfigure them. So for example, for my to-dos, right, it's showing 3 to-dos, and then I can tap see all to get to any additional ones. What I can do is change the visibility of that if I want. So if I click into my to-dos on this section, right, I can come in here and reconfigure this. So instead of showing up vertically with the vertical scrolling, I can make it a horizontal oriented section and say which I still want 3 to display. So I'm going to update that. And now just by doing that, it's going to change the layout of my to-dos, right? So now they're going to scroll over instead of down. which just makes it a little bit easier to navigate this page. And what I probably want to do is do that same thing for the requests so that they behave the same way. Okay. So now I have a default page that has content being presented. It's giving me quick visibility into my new hires. It's showing any to-dos that I have that are HR related, and any of my cases that are open as an employee for HR. I can search across the whole thing, or I can go through and browse the catalog for services and knowledge for services for content, as well as if I'm using Safe Workplace, I can get to all of my Safe Workplace functions from here as well. So now that you've sort of configured all this, right? The next question is well, that seems pretty easy. What else should we be considering before we would roll this out? Obviously testing. And the thing I want to mention around testing is what you should be focusing on or looking for specifically. So in most cases, all of your record producers and all of your knowledge content should be just fine, no issues. However, if you've done any custom work on your record producers, if you have any custom work that you're doing in your knowledge articles, you're going to want to check those to make sure that they're rendering properly. You may also want to look at some of your record producers to make sure that you don't need to update any of them with special instructional information, depending on what they're for. So for example, had a customer that was using, they had a record producer for employees to upload timesheets via a spreadsheet. Now, obviously from your mobile device, you're probably not going to have that spreadsheet ready to go. So you can't really update it or upload it from the device. So, something like that, you might want to add some instructional text to the body of the record producer that just says, given the nature of this, this request, we suggest you do it from your PC and not from your phone. So those are the types of things that you want to look out for when you're verifying that your record producers and your services are displaying properly. Okay. So I'm going to pause there. Guys, any questions that are coming in that you want to bring to the table?
A lot of the questions that have been coming up, but just to highlight a couple, I guess the most recent question from Teresa, she's asking, can you change the icons next to the onboarding phase, not the half moon?
Change the icons. Let me go back over here.
Onto those.
I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about these ones here on the timeline.
I think I'm lagging a little bit.
Yeah, you are. It's not. There we go.
Oh, there it is. Yes. So those icons can. Is this an IDV JSON or is this?
It's got to be an IDV JSON.
So it's likely that you can change it. Think about how this is set up.
Should we dig into it? We can probably drill down to it if you want.
Yeah, let's check it out. I don't know the answer, but let's try to figure this out real quick. Actually, Kevin, how much more time do you need to?
No, I'm good with the main content. So
okay,
the rest was really about questions and any other topics that that came up.
Yeah, let's go and drill into it. Kevin, could you possibly send the credentials over Slack to Fu and I, and then
oh, for the instance, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll log in and we'll take control real quick.
Okay.
Might be faster if we just go through it.
Yeah, you don't want to be a backseat driver and try to tell me where to go, right?
We might just save a couple minutes.
Yep.
All right. So give us a second to switch our screens, and then we'll take a closer look on how this is configured. I think you should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah, you're fine.
Perfect. So logging in as admin. that onboarding screen, Kevin, can you remind me what the tab name is called?
It was the For Me applet launcher, and it's the track new hires.
Got it. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look up my Applet launchers across all of my clients. When I click Applet launchers on the system mobile, it pulls up all my Applet launchers across ServiceNow Agent, Now Mobile, and onboarding. But if I want to look at just my Applet launcher for Now Mobile, Kevin mentioned that there's a tab called For Me. And there's a section in the body of your Applet launcher called Track New Hires. And this is a UI section, right? So I need to dive into the actual applet. The applet is a visualization, right, of the data and fields that you want to show. And there's a field here called destination screen. This is how I'm going to open up my applet. Let me just switch into that scope. Taking a few seconds. Okay. So let's jump into this applet. This is a list screen applet. And if you're not quite following along with all these backend tables, we did cover a mobile hierarchy, Mobile App Academy, and I did post it in the comments. But if you aren't familiar, we do have a YouTube playlist. If you just look up Mobile App Academy on YouTube, it should show up. There is an academy for mobile hierarchy. This will get you ramped up real quick. So definitely check that out if you're new to mobile. But going back to our configuration, let's jump into the item stream segment. Item stream, master item. And here are some of the fields that are showing up. I don't have my device linked up, so give me just a second to show my screen as I'm doing this. I might have to show, let me reshare actually. Kevin, can you actually send me a screenshot of that real fast on Slack?
Oh, that screen that
yeah.
we're looking at? Yep.
Just so I have a reference real quick. And then I might have to pass it back over to you. I don't have my dongle on me at this second. But I think if I look at this, let me share my screen again. But yeah, so we're just using the rest of this time to answer questions. Feel free to keep asking us questions in the chat. Again, the question that we're trying to answer right now is how to change the icons on the phases of that form screen. So, okay. So there is an applet called Track New Hire, and there's a tab on that Track New Hire timeline. So there should be a segment. Okay, got it. Timeline, my task, updates. This is interesting because I'm expecting to see 4 different item stream segments. I think you should still be able to see my screen, right?
Yep.
So these segments are basically the ones that should show up for my task or review and timeline, as well as updates. But for some reason, we're only seeing one segment called New Hire Onboarding Cases.
Yeah, and that might be the previous screen that has the list of people. So if you do track new hires, the first thing that you get is a list of the new hires. And then you drill into that to get to the tabbed view.
Ah, there's another drill down.
Yeah, there's another drill down.
So what is that drill down applet called? Do you possibly know?
It said it's track. It just continues to say track new hire in the app itself.
New hire. Okay. So maybe if I look up track new. Okay, so there's 2 here. And then I'm gonna pull out application and class. So I'm looking for a list screen. list screens are the only type of templates that support segments. So I'm expecting to find a list screen with 4 segments. Maybe it's this form screen here. Oh, there it is. So I found it. Okay, so initially, Kevin clicked on the first list screen. But if you drill down further into the form screen, here you'll find your 4 segments. And
the timeline's the one that had the half moons on it.
There it is. Okay. So here is, now I'm trying to find the item view JSON on how the fields are being shown up. So I'm going to click into master item, which hosts my item view. And here I can check my item view here. Now we're not going to show you how to configure this item view, but if you know how to, customize JSON, you do have that ability. I just want to show you where you can change it. So let's open up this record. And you can see here that they're using different UI styles to show that icon. Okay, so I think what might be helpful is I'm going to open up a product docs that there was a feature, an enhancement to UI styles called text placeholder icon. And that's basically what they're using here. If you configure a UI style here, you can actually change it. We don't have enough time to do the end-to-end configuration for that, but let me link you the product docs to it. But now at least you know where to find it and how to configure it. And if I show you the product docs to this, let's look at UI styles, mobile UI styles, text decorator icons. So this is what they're using to configure those half moon icons. Let me send this in the chat, and that should get you on your way to being able to figure out the rest.
Hey, David. Hey, David, do you want to look at one of them? So for example, change finish icon and just look at the UI styles. And then you can see that there's probably a condition to change the way it looks.
Okay. So let's take a look at one of these.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at one of them.
Let's see.
Hit the eye.
Change finished icon for activity set. You open this record. And then
so
here.
There's the condition, right? And then it's going to change that item view element based on the color. So you can manipulate this.
Right. So when the activity set state is finished, this is the text decorator icon that you get. And how to configure these text decorator icons, please follow these product docs. And I may cover, our team will look into doing another mobile app academy. This will take a whole hour to kind of show you. So we don't have enough time for that, but at least you should now understand how to get there. And,
so one related question in there then is, when you're looking at those segments, could you reorder the segments within there too if you wanted to?
Yes, for sure. So if you wanted to reorder your segments, let's go back to the form screen which hosts those segments. So here's all your segments, and there's an order number here. If you want to move these around, just change them.
So there's orders on those too.
Got it. So let me stop sharing.
Let's answer some chats live, right? So one of them is it possible to update the zoom ratio of a browser screen which shows the KB article? I'm not sure what do you mean by zoom ratio. Are you talking about the size of?
My assumption is that they're talking about the size of how the because that's just an embedded browser that's showing the knowledge article. So is it, is it 70%, 100% when you look at it? That was my interpretation of that question.
Yeah, I'm assuming you pinch to zoom KB article, the ability to do that, or
the question probably came up from when I clicked on the COVID-19 resources, and then it pulls up a knowledge article, right? So that could be what they were referring to. So if I share my screen again real quick, it's this here, right? So I started off here, clicked on the content, and it brought up this. So I'm assuming they're talking about this, the zoom level of this view.
It's probably by default by now. I don't think that's possible to update the ratio. Are you able to like
No, you can't pinch and zoom on this screen.
okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. They probably hard coded it somewhere. So unfortunately, that's not possible right now. The next question, once the mobile is configured launch for HR, is there a best practice associated with adding additional content, say related to IT or other capabilities to keep the mobile rendering easy to use and navigate?
Yeah, I think for that one, it goes back to what I was saying before about, if you don't have IT and you're adding it, making sure that the experience is consistent, mainly around the naming and the labeling of things, so that, because obviously if your IT group calls, requests, and your HR group calls things cases, right? You sort of want to come up with some nomenclature that's going to be so it's going to support both, right? So like get help or request something or something along those lines. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other is just, don't put stuff out there just to have it out there, right? Like find out from your users what they would like to do or expect to do from their mobile device. Just because it's on your portal doesn't mean it has to be available through Now Mobile as well.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is, can you explain to me, he wants to understand how prioritize data items or guide me to a link if already discussed. I feel like we've discussed prioritized applets. David, do we have a video on that? Do you recall? If not, we might have to build one.
Oh, can you repeat the question?
So basically, we want to understand, do we have a video on explaining how prioritized data items work?
Prioritized data items.
It's the same thing as prioritized data applets.
Yeah, so we for sure have product docs on it. Let me double check if we have a video on.
I'm pretty sure we've done navigation to prioritize applets. So
yes. Let me add that in the chat actually.
Okay.
Yep.
We will send that video link. The next question, should the mobile app theme colors update right away on the app after log out, log back in? I think the color theme, it'll get updated by just pull the refresh. The log out, log in is only applies to when you change the navigation, like the ordering, or if you add a new navigation, you would have to log out, log back in. But for themes, you should be able to just pull the refresh and it'll show. Give that a shot, Rob. The next question is, really nice new session. Oh, it's not really a question, but a more comment. And then the last question on my list is, can you remove the authored by view on the KB article?
Yeah, so that was back to the zooming on the knowledge, right? So here, like where it says authored by, and then the 6 months ago and the 4 views, can you reconfigure this view to get rid of some of that, maybe put it at the bottom to get more real estate and get right to the content?
I could add to this too. So our inbound PM teams are looking at creating KB so that they're a lot more native. And so you don't need to do a lot of the pinching and zooming. Right here, this KB is kind of like a web view. It's kind of between hybrid. It's an okay solution for now, but we're working on improving this experience so it's a lot more accessible and easy to read. And we are looking at this in Quebec. Please also share that feedback with us on our idea portal on Mobile Community. Anytime that you have enhancement ideas, please submit them on idea portal. And those do go directly to our product teams so that we can have further discussions on them. So appreciate any feedback there.
And then there's one question from the Q&A from Jerry regarding the sysid of the user. On the app ALP, on the header, and you want to show the header title like hello. I know Kevin hard-coded that value to Maria. Is there a way to dynamically do it? I think there is. I think it's, do you recall, David? I think it's like, I wonder if you can do like current.sys_id.
Yeah, I mean, it's here. It's just referencing the a user record, right?
Mm-hmm.
Open up
Applet launcher, header title.
click on the record and then click I. So first, I want to mention that anytime you configure the header of your app launchers, it's much easier to do it inside of Mobile Studio. So go ahead and open up that record. On the back end, it's using this variable and text, right? I think that sysid is, I don't know which sysid it's referencing at the moment, but it's some sort of mobile backend table. But all this is auto-populated for you when you use Mobile Studio. And so if you actually were to copy and paste this onto another header title on another app launcher, it will actually dynamically autofill the current user that's logged in. So right now, this is, for example, this is for the For Me tab, right? If I were to copy and paste this text and also include this variable, username in header greeting, and were to replicate that on the Services tab, you would also get that same result. But again, we don't recommend that you configure it like this. We do recommend that you configure it inside Mobile Studio.
Should we show them how to do it in Studio right now? Because the people are asking that question.
Yes, let's do a Mobile Studio real fast. Go ahead. So we are going to go over. This will take us about 5 minutes, but feel free to stay on if you like to follow us on this configuration. And then we'll wrap it up at 11:10, answering any other remaining questions we have.
Cool. We're gonna stop sharing so you can take over.
All right. You guys see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Nope. So I guess we'll go to, let's look at the Applet Launcher incident. And so in the header, you want to include, for example, the icon. And then we can say, oh, do I need to create a, I need to create a destination, huh, to the user table? For the header.
Oh, for the header?
Yeah, we have to create
They made it a requirement to set the destination.
I was going to use the user details.
Use any applet, yeah.
But they don't. I don't have this. I don't have the. I was going to use like this.
I don't think it matters. Just select any applet, just because it's a required field, and then it should be okay. Again, that's just like the profile navigation, which isn't relevant to this conversation. So just click save for now. Right now, so explain the header type between generic and home. So generic, you'll get this hard-coded title where the title will be exactly what you write it out to be, and it's more. It won't introduce. It won't say hello user or anything like that. It's more for like if you want to build like a landing page for your team, let's say for San Francisco incident team or whatever, then you can hard code the title. But if you want it to be more dynamic, where it's pulling the sysid of the user, of the current logged in user, you click on home. In home, it pulls up two fields. First, it's the initial greeting field, which is your text, and then the variable. And you can select any profile. We'll just explain the variable. The variable here is where it will either pull the first name, last name, full name, or none. So right now you can have it dynamically, welcome the logged in user based on first name, last name, or full name.
And this is dynamic.
And this is dynamic, exactly. So hopefully that makes sense, Dirk. And we'll unmute you if you have any other further questions on that. Let us know if that kind of makes sense. Dirk, we'll go ahead and unmute you, actually. Oh, it looks like we answered your question. Okay, I allowed you to talk. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any further questions on this.
Oh, yes, thanks a lot for the explanation. I will go through and have a test drive from my side. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Sweet. And then appreciate the suggestion, Rob. I'll definitely bring that back to our inbound PM teams to further discuss that. Are there any other questions that we have? If not, let's go ahead and wrap up. We are at the end of the hour and we have a few people dropping off now. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you found this session was informative, and thank you, Kevin, for giving us a great intro on Now Mobile App for HR BU. I think this was very helpful for a lot of us. And if any of you guys have any further questions, feel free to keep posting on our mobile community site, where we'll continue exploring other configurations for future app academies. We'll have our last session of the year in 2 weeks, and we'll actually be doing another deep dive on the Safe Workplace mobile app. So make sure to keep following our mobile community site to get the latest dates and information. And with that, I hope to see you at our next Mobile App Academy. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.